Campfire Classics is a classic literature podcast. However, your hosts will occasionally use not-so-classy language and immature humor to describe very mature situations. As such, listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Ken Sandberg.
And I'm Heather Michelle Lawler.
Welcome to Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
West Virginia, take me home. Take country road, take me home. Guess I don't know that song.
Yes, so thank you. We are coming to you live, except from West Virginia.
Hello from West Virginia. I made it. We are currently actually across the table from each other.
Yeah.
Yay!
Back in the same place.
I love you.
Love you. Big thanks to Emily for filling in last week.
Yeah.
But we are back to the original lineup and ready to play.
Ready to play.
I just realized part of the reason I am talking so strange right now is because I still have the headphones on.
Yes, you do. I was like,
so
are you
my
doing like
voice
full
sounds
on
really cool in my own head.
You're doing very good announcer voice right now. I was like, is this a new thing we're going with? It's like 1980s Casey Kasem. Like,
yeah. I've decided
thank
I'm
you
just
for
gonna
listening.
I'm gonna go full radio DJ from now on.
Okay.
That's my new character. Have you not been working on a new character?
I have. I just didn't want to reveal it until later.
Until we were ready.
Also, you might notice that our Airbnb is on a Rowell. It's a relatively busy street.
It's on the set for Ralph.
Ralph.
I don't know.
Like Wreck-It Ralph?
Wreck-It Ralph. Yes,
okay.
It's on the set of Wreck-It Ralph.
That makes sense actually, because Velopia or whatever. Not that sounds like fallopian tubes. That's not right.
Yeah.
Whatever the girl's name is, she likes to drive cars, so it makes sense that it would be.
Yeah. Well, and he likes to destroy things, so it always sounds like a construction site.
Noisy. So yeah, if you hear some gears shifting and whatnot, it's because about 25 feet from where we're recording is a relatively busy road.
And that was a ghost.
And there's a ghost in our... Here's that thing again.
Yeah.
But we're here and we're together, and I'm excited to... I got to see Pride and Prejudice, which was amazing. I saw it 3 times. I saw preview, opening, and then I saw their 4th performance. So I got to meet Emily, yay, and I got to meet the whole cast, and they're all amazing. And so, if you're in West Virginia, if you happen to be near Lewisburg, West Virginia in the next couple weeks, don't miss it. It's delightful.
Well worth the time. Come be a Jane Austen groupie. It's what all the cool kids are doing.
A Jane Austen, but it's like, bring young people, because like, it's a Kate Hamill adaptation, so it's not your BBC Jane Austen. It is very accessible and funny, and like there's fart jokes. I mean, it's really right up my alley. There's dick and fart jokes all over the place, and
it's
I'm
basically just this podcast. It is Jane Austen with penis jokes.
Yeah, exactly. I said we should read a Jane Austen sometime because apparently it's very accessible for our sense of humor. So good job, Kate Hamill. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Greenbrier Valley Theater, for putting that up and kicking butt. So I also, while we've been in Lewisburg, I have been shopping around the little stores. So Lewisburg is actually a really cool little town, and relatively liberal for where we are in the world.
For West Virginia.
And I've found a couple little cute, like a bookshop where I bought a really fun game that I'm hoping you'll get to play with the cast from A New Chapter bookstore, and it's like matchmaking, but it's like shoots or snakes and arrows or snakes and ladders.
It's like snakes and ladders or shoots and ladders.
Yeah, but when you get to the top, it's to meet your match. It's like so it's like, will Elizabeth and Darcy get together, or maybe Darcy will end up with Miss Bennet and Bingley. It is a progressive game. But then today I was in a little like flea market shop that was adorable. I can't think of the name right now, but I'll tag them in the
Patina.
I was in Patina, which is another little shop in town, and I saw this card game that's very much like, I think it's like Cards Against Humanity, but it's not. So you add accents. It's called utter nonsense, and it seemed right up our alley considering we destroy accents all the time. So you basically draw an accent card and then you draw other cards and you have to say the thing in that dialect. So
all right, so here we go. We're going to try that.
All right.
How are we doing this? Who's going first?
I'll go first.
All right. So are you going to tell us what the accent is, or am I going to have to guess?
I think you will be able to guess.
Okay.
Oh my God. Like, that place is totally bogus. It's filled with dipsticks and dweebs and Euro trash.
Emotional, sad,
Cry.
Yeah.
I was like, that's not really an accent. It's an
really
emotion,
an accent.
but it does make you sound a certain way. So, I'll get on board with that.
Yeah.
Also, this card is hilarious. It's actually OMG.
All right,
now your turn.
my turn.
I'm going to guess. I will hand you a card.
Fuck you, fuck your family, and get the fuck out of my way. Who planted this fucking tree here?
Lisp?
No. Nerd.
I was gonna say nerd or lisp. It was a little bit of both.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna do one more. This is fun.
All right.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. HGTV is my porn.
Darth Vader.
It's not. It's Batman.
Oh.
I was trying to do the I'm Batman.
Well, it was the...
Yeah, I didn't. That sounded more like Bane. Let's be real. I did not handle that one well. All right, you get one more.
All right, one more.
This is redonkulous. I love this. Oh no.
Fucking hell. All right. My beard can seek out obscure bands and craft breweries and then post about them on Reddit.
You constipated?
Pooping.
Yeah! That is the place to end this. Okay, so they're not all accents, I guess. It's more like states of being.
How you say them, yeah.
Yes, pooping. Any game that has a card that just says pooping in it wins.
Probably gonna be okay. So this has been Utter Nonsense with Campfire Classics.
Utter nonsense.
I hope you enjoyed that.
I love that that's not any different from the rest of the podcast for the moment.
No, except that we're being told how to say stupid shit.
We're being told how to say stupid shit.
Yeah.
Like, we don't just make it up on the spot. Like, oh yeah, that'll be right. Speaking of making up shit on the spot, you want to do what we do?
Sure, let's jump into what we do. So for first-time listeners, and if we're doing our job right, every episode is somebody's first episode.
You're here.
What we do on this podcast is your hosts, Heather and Ken, take turns alternating weekly, usually, except that, last week got confusing.
And it might happen again.
And it might happen again, but that's okay. We take turns alternating who is going to read a short story sight unseen. We pulled these short stories from the public domain so that nobody sues us. But before we get to the story, whoever chose the story usually reads out some little fun facts, some interesting info, some intellectual inspiration.
Basically, we want you to learn something during all this utter nonsense. Yep. So
this week, Heather has chosen a story for me to read, and so she's going to jump into some fun facts that will probably have something to do with the story or the author, but I don't want to put words in her mouth, so take it away, Heather.
Surprise! So we are going to revisit an author this time. We have not read this author in quite some time.
All right.
So I'm doing a little fun thing with fun facts because of something that happened with this author. So if you go back and listen to episode... I don't remember which one. I didn't even look it up. But we read An Occurrence at Owl Creek, and we're reading Ambrose Bierce. So Ambrose Bierce is our author. So if you go back and listen to that episode, do we want to look up what that is so I can
believe it was
reference
episode 12, Here Comes the Boom Boom.
Here Comes the Boom Boom. That is right. So if you want to hear our original fun facts about Ambrose Bierce, where we go more into his upbringing and, the basic fun facts that you can find on Wikipedia or Google search or Britannica.com, please go listen to episode 12, In the Boom Boom Room.
Here comes the boom.
Here comes the boom boom. In the Boom Boom Room is a whole nother episode.
That's the name of my sex tape.
I knew it. I found it the other day. Don't Google that, everybody. Or do. I mean, Ken Sandberg in the Boom Boom Room.
Actually, if you Google that, please let me know what
Send us what you find.
shows up, because I'd be curious.
So this week, Ambrose Bierce, and just a quick recap, American short story writer, journalist, poet, and a Civil War veteran. So the last story we read was very much a war story, like during the Civil War.
Yes.
Which he became very famous for writing about. But another thing he became very famous for is what I'm going to focus on these fun facts. So Ambrose Bierce, I touched on this briefly on the last one, was famous for his disappearance, and then he just never was seen again. Yes. So you remember that?
Yes,
So
yes.
I will recap this. So October 1913, Bierce was 71. And he left Washington, D.C. to tour old Civil War battlefields. Just, do a little more research and whatnot. That's what he wrote about and what he experienced. According to reports, by December, he had passed through Louisiana and Texas, crossing into El Paso into Mexico, which he then just disappeared. So the last thing people knew is he went through El Paso into Mexico and was never seen again. So
was there a strange man with big white hair and a trench coat seen at about that time, possibly driving what in retrospect appears to be a mid-'80s DeLorean?
It might be. I mean, Ambrose Bierce could be Marty McFly.
Also, can someone check and see if I made that joke last time? Because it sounds like something I would have done.
That could have happened because it's the third one. The third one, they're in kind of the Wild West.
Yeah.
So like Texas, El Paso, whatnot. So he just disappeared. There was an official investigation. There was all this stuff, but he just disappeared and nobody knows. There's this theory that he committed suicide. There's a theory that he got lost in the desert and died. There's a theory that he was executed by a firing squad in like some town in Mexico or down in Central America.
Okay.
Literally nobody knows. It is a mystery. So what I'm doing for fun facts is writers that have famously disappeared.
Oh, all right.
Yes. It took a while to get there, but I wanted to give you a little context.
Long walk for a short drink of water.
Long walk for a short drink of water. I want to give you a little recap on our author first.
Great.
So this is a pretty common thing. I mean, we did cover Agatha Christie's disappearance, which she came back, but still to this day, no one quite knows what happened. So I'm just going to touch on a few other authors. So there's an author named Barbara Newell Follett, who was a child prodigy. Her debut novel was The House Without Windows, and it was published in 1927 when she was 12 years old. Went through really great reviews and everything from the New York Times and everything else. When she was 14, her father left the family for another woman, and she found a job, married a man who was unfaithful, yada, yada. Then when she was like in her early 20s, just disappeared. Just went away.
All right.
Which was a striking parallel to what happens in her first novel. So a little weird, a little kooky. Then we have Solomon Northup, who is
That's not a real name.
He was a free man, so he was, actually, you probably know his name quite well. He wrote 12 Years a Slave.
Oh!
The book.
I was wondering why that name sounded familiar.
So he was a freeman and professional violinist who was kidnapped and sold into slavery while traveling on a musician gig. So 12 Years a Slave is his story.
It's based on his life.
Yes. While he was on tour lecturing about abolition, he disappeared. Now, the most common theory is that he was kidnapped and taken back into slavery.
Yeah, it's not hard to guess.
That one's not hard to guess, but unfortunately, he disappeared. But that's a very famous book now because of the movie that was made. That was great. Anton de Saint-Exupéry. It's French. I apologize. He wrote The Little Prince. It's the writer who wrote The Little Prince. Anyway, he wrote The Little Prince, which I think everybody, I mean, I read it as a kid, and like it's actually that was the book we read when we were like learning French, and clearly I was very good at it. He was an experienced aviator pilot, and he had multiple like close calls with death while he was flying, and I'm like, that would be a good reason for me to stop flying.
You'd think.
But he is assumed he disappeared during when he was serving in the French Air Force during World War II. He just disappeared. Huh. So missing in action, he never was found.
He's hanging out with Amelia Earhart.
Probably, actually. Yeah. That's probably true.
Yeah. They just got picked up by those aliens from Independence Day, and they're all chilling somewhere.
Yep. Then we have Julian Torma, is a Dadaist playwright. So I'm like, I should know this because actually the year before I came to UMKC, my theater history course that I was put into was like existential playwrights and whatnot. So it was, I probably know this name if I searched back in my brain far enough. But yeah, a Dadaist poet and playwright, and also like just writer in general. Always was a very mysterious writer, and then at the age of 30, Torma allegedly entered the mountains of Tyrol in Austria and never returned.
Right, so he got eaten by a Yeti or something.
Yep. There are so many. I'm going to jump to one more, and then we'll jump into our little story.
All right.
But I wanted to read this one just because it makes me laugh. Jack Black. Not that one.
Brigadoom boom, brigadoom boom.
Did you know Jack Black disappeared? This is a new one. No, this man's name is Jack Black, and he was an inspirational beat poet and writer. He was also a career criminal who spent most of his life in jail. So his most famous story was his memoir, You Can't Win. Details his life as an outlaw and time in prison. So I'm like, Johnny Cash would probably dig this dude. His book was an instant hit, and it was actually turned into a play. So I kind of want to look into that. But he disappeared in 1932. It is believed that because he was sailing in the New York harbor, and his boat, and he just never came back. So it got lost at sea, or it went down, or pirates came, who knows, but he disappeared. And then Ambrose Bierce, of course. So many questions about that. And then, of course, our muse, Agatha Christie. So there are actually like a dozen more authors writers specifically, who have just disappeared.
Apparently being a writer is a very dangerous profession to get into. You just disappear into the mist.
Into your words.
Maybe they all just found Brigadoon.
Oh, that could be. They're all in Brigadoon.
Yeah.
That's what I like to think. Brigadoon or Schmigadoon.
They all just disappeared into Brigadoon.
Yep. They're all in the field singing musical theater tunes and kicking their faces.
Yep.
Yes. So that is our little fun fact section for this week. Because,
thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Lovely.
That was when I started doing research on him again. I was like, oh, that was so weird. I wonder if other authors have done that, because I knew Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
And the results were pretty impressive, actually. So, all right. So last time we read one of Ambrose Bierce's more like Civil War soldier stories.
Yes, Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
This is called Beyond the Wall, and it is considered a mystery. And it was published first in Cosmopolitan in December 1907.
Awesome.
So let's start the fire and get some scary on.
Beyond the Wall by Ambrose Bierce.
Back to the radio voice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Beyond the Wall. Ghost written by Ambrose Bierce.
Ghost written?
Yes, because it's an autobiography of Jon Snow.
Why? We make so many Game of Thrones references on this.
Because we're cool.
That's actually funny, because when I was researching this, I was like, why is this reminding me of something? That's it. That's it right there. All right, Jon Snow.
So, listeners, welcome to our Game of Thrones fancast. Many years ago, on my way from Hong Kong to New York, I passed a week in San Francisco. A long time had gone by since I had been in that city, during which my ventures in the Orient had prospered beyond my hope. I was rich and could afford to revisit my own country to renew my friendship with such of the companions of my youth as still lived and remembered me with the old affection.
Are you going to San Francisco? Because you're rich and you're gonna flaunt it all. Are you going to San Francisco? That's all I've got. Keep reading the story.
A musical Game of Thrones fancast. So going to San Francisco to visit
friends.
whatever. It's a high school reunion, but most of the people are dead.
Most people are dead and he's rich. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So
the dream.
of which remember me with the old affection. Chief of these, I hoped, was Mohan Dampier.
Mohan? All right. And it's a name?
Yep, it's a name, yeah.
All right.
Mohan Dampier. An old schoolmate with whom I held a desultory correspondence which had long ceased, as is the way of correspondence between men.
Or, high school friends.
You may have observed that the indisposition to write a merely social letter is in the ratio of the square of the distance between you and your correspondent. It is a law. That's a real fancy way of saying out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Especially then, when you had to write letters and shit, you didn't get to check up with them you didn't get to stalk them on Facebook. No. It was just okay, they no longer probably exist. It's fine.
Yeah. I remembered Dampier as a handsome, strong young fellow of scholarly tastes, with an aversion to work and a marked indifference to many of the things that the world cares for, including wealth, of which, however, he had inherited enough to put him beyond the reach of want. In his family, one of the oldest and most aristocratic in the country, it was, I think, a matter of pride that no member of it had ever been in a trade nor politics, nor suffered any kind of distinction.
Huh.
Mohan was a trifle sentimental and had in him a singular element of superstition, which led him to the study of all manner of occult subjects, although his sane mental health safeguarded him against fantastic and perilous faiths.
What is it like to have sane mental health?
Is kind of it's cool. But it's probably kind of being being the most boring of the MCU movies.
Which one?
Oh, our listeners know.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
we don't want to rustle anyone's feathers out there.
No, but listener, you know. you know.
Apparently they know.
You know which one is the most boring.
Oh, God.
Being of sane mental health would be like perpetually watching that movie. It's fine. It's still an MCU movie.
I would trade that for not having sane mental health any day.
He made daring incursions into the realm of the unreal without renouncing his residence in the partly surveyed and charted region of what we are pleased to call certitude. The night of my visit to him was stormy.
Uh-oh.
The Californian winter was on, and the incessant rain splashed in the deserted streets or lifted by irregular gusts of wind was hurled against the houses with incredible fury. With no small difficulty, my cabman found the right place away out toward the ocean beach in a sparsely populated suburb. The dwelling, a rather ugly one, apparently, stood in the center of its grounds, which, as nearly as I could make out in the gloom, were destitute of either flowers or grass. 3 or 4 trees, writhing and moaning in the torment of the tempest, appeared to be trying to escape from their dismal environment and take the chance of finding a better one out at sea.
Holy shit. This is a dark-ass day in San Francisco.
The house was a 2-story brick structure with a tower a story higher at one corner. In a window of that was the only visible light. Something in the appearance of the place made me shudder, a performance that may have been assisted by a rill of rainwater down my back as I scuttled to cover in the doorway. In answer to my note apprising him of my wish to call, Dampier had written, "Don't ring, open the door and come up." I did so. The staircase was dimly lighted by a single gas jet at the top of the second flight, which in my head means it was being lit by fucking pyrotechnics.
When I walked in the door, fireworks erupted.
Goddamn dragon breathed on me.
Yippee!
And we're back in Game of Thrones. I managed to reach the landing without disaster. That's good. And entered by an open
That's a
door.
good start. I didn't fall up the stairs.
I managed to make it upstairs without killing myself.
Good job.
So I called it a good day and went to bed.
End of story.
I managed to reach the landing without disaster and entered by an open door into the lighted square room of the tower. Dampier came forward in gown and slippers to receive me, giving me the greeting that I wished. And if I had held a thought that it might more fitly have been accorded me at the front door, the first look at him dispelled any sense of his inhospitality.
Oh, damn.
He was not the same. Hardly past middle age, he had gone gray and had acquired a pronounced stoop.
Isn't that fun when you see your classmates and you're like, there is no fucking way we are the same age? Whether they've aged really, 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 really good or they've aged and you're like, they look like my parents now. There is no way we are all the same age.
Yeah.
I have a lot of those friends where some of them look amazing and whatever. And then some of them I'm like, ooh, rough 20s, eh?
Well, I have
I'm like, drugs?
I have a couple of friends who I've realized, who have made me realize that we are now getting very close to the age that our parents were when we were friends in late elementary school, middle school.
Oh yeah.
Because I see pictures of them now and I'm like, oh my God, you look exactly like your dad did when we met, or you look exactly like your mom did when we met, or whatever.
Yep. It's real eerie.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So his friend has had a rough time.
Hardly past middle age, he had gone gray and had acquired a pronounced stoop. His figure was thin and angular, his face deeply lined, his complexion dead white, without a touch of color. His eyes, unnaturally large, glowed with a fire that was almost uncanny. He seated me, proffered a cigar, and with grave and obvious sincerity assured me of the pleasure that it gave him to meet me. Some unimportant conversation followed, but all the while I was dominated by a melancholy sense of the great change in him. This he must have perceived, for he suddenly said with a bright enough smile, "You are disappointed in me."
Oh, shit.
Non sum qualis erum.
Ooh, some Latin.
I hardly knew what to reply, but managed to say, why, really, I don't know. Your Latin is about the same.
Oh, damn. Oh, rough. Oh, rough. Latin, yeah.
No, he said. Being a dead language, it grows in appropriateness. But please have the patience to wait. Where I am going, there is perhaps a better tongue.
Oh.
Will you care to have a message in it?
Huh?
His smile faded as he spoke, and as he concluded, he was looking into my eyes with a gravity that distressed me. Yet I would not surrender myself to his mood, nor permit him to see how deeply his prescience of death affected me. I fancy that it will be long, I said, before human speech will cease to serve our need, and then the need, with its possibilities of service, will have passed. He made no reply, and I too was silent, for the talk had taken a dispiriting turn, yet I knew not how to give it a more agreeable character. Suddenly, in a pause of the storm, when the dead silence was almost startling by contrast with the previous uproar, I heard a gentle tapping, which appeared to come from the wall behind my chair.
Wait, I didn't know we were doing Poe this week. Tap, tap, tap.
Nevermore.
Nevermore.
The sound was such as might have been made by a human hand, not as upon a door by one asking admittance, but rather, I thought, as an agreed signal, an assurance of someone's presence in an adjoining room. Most of us, I fancy, have had more experience of such communications than we should care to relate. I glanced at Dampier. If possibly there was something of amusement in the look, he did not observe it. He appeared to have forgotten my presence and was staring at the wall behind me with an expression in his eyes that I am unable to name, although my memory of it is as vivid today as was my sense of it then. The situation was embarrassing. I rose to take my leave. At this, he seemed to recover himself. "Please, be seated," he said. "It is nothing. No one is there."
Okay.
But the tapping was repeated, and with the same gentle, slow insistence as before. "Pardon me," I said. "It is late. May I call tomorrow?" He smiled, a little mechanically, I thought. "It is very delicate of you," said he, "but quite needless, really. This is the only room in the tower, and no one is there.
Don't go into the room in the tower.
No one ever listens to my song.
No.
But you really need to. At least..." He left the sentence incomplete, rose, and threw up a window, the only opening in the wall from which the sound seemed to come. "See?"
Oh my God. Oh,
Not
God.
clearly knowing what else to do, I followed him to the window and looked out. A street lamp some little distance away gave enough light through the murk of the rain that was again falling in torrents to make it entirely plain that no one was there. In truth, there was nothing but a sheer blank wall of the tower. Dampier closed the window and, signing me to my seat, resumed his own.
Okay, this is like, okay, so he goes to visit his friend from high school.
Yep.
Shows up, friend looks a little rough, and then, like, there's these noises from secret rooms and windows. It's like, do you have the murder house in town? Like, or what's going on here?
Yep.
Can I come back tomorrow? No, come over and look out the window.
In the daylight?
Yeah, can I come back when it... Yeah.
This feels like the guy in high school who liked to set you up, like play pranks and shit. But he just never grew up.
Yeah, he either never grew up or he was just studying to be a psychopath. One of the two.
The incident was not itself particularly mysterious. Any one of a dozen explanations was possible, though none has occurred to me. Yet it impressed me strangely, the more, perhaps, from my friend's effort to reassure me, which seemed to dignify it with a certain significance and importance.
Yeah.
He had proved that no one was there, but in that fact lay all the interest.
It's like, oh.
And
wait,
he
what?
proffered no explanation. His silence was irritating and made me resentful.
Yeah.
My good friend, I said, somewhat ironically, I fear, I am not disposed to question your right to harbor as many spooks as you find agreeable to your taste and consistent with your notions of companionship. That is no business of mine. But being just a plain man of affairs, mostly of this world, I find spooks needless to my peace and comfort. I am going to my hotel where my fellow guests are still in the flesh.
So he lost his cool really fast.
Yep.
And was like, bye. Not into it.
That's also one of my favorite speeches yet to be given in
one of
any
our
of our stories.
It's very blunt. It's like, no, I'm not going to hang out. No, I'm not going to stay in the room in the tower. No, I'm not going to check into this room that you're like, it's totally fine. No, I'm going to get the fuck out of here because no, I don't do ghosts. You're being weird and I'm out.
Well, but it's also, it's all of that, but it's also so polite in all of that. Because it's listen, maybe you do the ghost thing. Maybe ghosts are part of your life. That's cool. They are not part of mine.
Not judging
so
you.
If you don't mind, fuck you.
Yeah, without saying fuck you. It's like, if you don't mind, you do you, and I'm going to go do me. Goodbye. Peace out.
It was not a very civil speech.
I would argue that. I
disagree. I think it was incredibly civil.
Especially for being on the spot while the ghost is knocking on the door. So, yeah.
But he manifested no feeling about it. Kindly remain, he said. I am grateful for your presence here. What you have heard tonight, I believe myself to have heard twice before. Now I know it is no illusion. That is much to me, more than you know. Have a fresh cigar and a good stock of patience while I tell you the story.
Oh, no. Leave. You said you wanted to leave.
Always leave.
Just
Ghost
go.
Stories, dear listeners, ghost stories told at night during thunderstorms or around campfires like this one.
Yes, crackle.
Are things that have great power.
Mm-hmm.
What that means is if you're hanging out with your high school buddy in a creepy-ass house and they say, let me tell you a ghost story, you say no.
Like, I'm good.
I'll come back in the morning, because you know when ghost stories have no power? In the morning, over a cup of coffee or a mimosa.
Yeah, I was going to say a mimosa.
Nothing is scary that comes with a side of French toast. That is science.
Take that, Mr. Wizard. Bill Nye, are you listening? And we know you are.
10 years ago, he said, I occupied a ground floor apartment in one of a row of houses all alike away at the other end of town on what we call Rincon Hill. This had been the best quarter of San Francisco, but had fallen into neglect and decay, partly because the primitive character of its domestic architecture no longer suited the maturing tastes of our wealthy citizens, partly because certain public improvements had made a wreck of it.
Oh, so they got gentrified.
Yeah.
Okay.
The row of dwellings in one of which I lived stood a little way back from the street, each having a miniature garden separated from its neighbors by low iron fences and bisected with mathematical precision by a box-bordered gravel walk from gate to door. One morning, as I was leaving my lodging, I observed a young girl entering the adjoining garden on the left. It was a warm day in June, and she was lightly gowned in white. From her shoulders hung a broad straw hat profusely decorated with flowers and wonderfully beribboned in the fashion of the time. My attention was not long held by the exquisite simplicity of her costume, for no one could look at her face and think of anything earthly. Do not fear, I shall not profane it by description.
Oh, God! That's worse.
It was beautiful exceedingly.
So she was so beautiful, there's no way she could be real.
Yeah, unearthly. And
I thought it was going to be the other side.
And try to describe would be
like
profanity.
Describing, yeah.
All that I had ever seen or dreamed of loveliness was in that matchless living picture by the hand of the divine artist. So deeply did it move me that without a thought of the impropriety of the act, I unconsciously bared my head as a devout Catholic or well-bred Protestant uncovers before an image of the Blessed Virgin. The maiden showed no displeasure. She merely turned her glorious dark eyes upon me with a look that made me catch my breath, and without other recognition of my act, passed into the house. For a moment, I stood motionless.
Except for your dick. Your dick. Everything else was still. And there was just like twitch, 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 twitch.
For a moment, I stood motionless, hat on dick, painfully conscious of my dick. Yet so dominated by the emotion of my dick.
All I can see is Paul Rudd reading that in his character from Wanderlust, like, my dick. I'm grossing myself out.
Then I went my way, leaving my dick behind.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh God, that took a turn. Ow! Ow! Ouch! Or metaphorically. He's metaphorically leaving his dick behind.
I hope it's a metaphor, because what he actually said he left behind was his heart.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to go back and read that half a paragraph.
Without the dicks?
Without the dicks.
Okay.
For a moment, I stood motionless, hat in hand, painfully... Oh, I said hat on dick. I could have said dick in hand.
I mean, hat on dick is a really funny image.
It is.
It's like someone put a top hat on their penis. It's like, hello.
And that's very good.
How are you?
But I stood motionless, dick in hand, painfully conscious of my rudeness. That is such a delightful sentence.
That happens on the New York subway often, I think.
Oh.
I have definitely been on a subway at like 2 a.m. when there's some guy dick in hand, painfully unaware.
Yep.
Yep.
For a moment, I stood motionless, hat in hand, painfully conscious of my rudeness, yet so dominated by the emotion inspired by that vision of incomparable beauty that my penitence was less poignant than it should have been.
So I was horny, and I should
have felt guilty about it, but
I didn't.
Then I went on my way, leaving my heart behind.
Ain't that the Catholic way? It should feel
In
guilt.
the natural course of things, I should probably have remained away until nightfall, but by the middle of the afternoon, I was back in the little garden, affecting an interest in the few foolish flowers that I had never before observed. My hope was vain. She did not appear. To a night of unrest succeeded a day of expectation and disappointment, but on the day after, as I wandered aimlessly about the neighborhood, I met her. Of course, I did not repeat my folly of uncovering, nor venture by even so much as a long look to manifest an interest in her, yet my heart was beating audibly. I trembled and consciously colored as she turned her big black eyes upon me with a look of obvious recognition, entirely devoid of boldness or coquetry.
I would be like, dude, are you trying to talk me into a threesome with your wife? Because like he's come to visit his friend from high school. Mm-hmm. And he's like, let me tell you a story about this hot lady. And there's this tapping on the door next to them. And it's like, dude, do you want me to have a threesome with you and your wife? Like, this is a lot of theatricality for
you can just ask.
You can just ask. Right, I might be into it.
Really, but just bring her in. I'll take one look and I'll know if we're going for it or not.
Like, I know we touched penises in gym that one time.
Just the tip.
Just the tip. But let's just see her. You don't have to, this doesn't have to be a whole thing.
It's not gay if it's in the locker room.
It's not, yeah, and apparently this house has its own locker room. Tap, tap, tap.
I will not weary you with particulars. Many times afterward I met the maiden, yet never either addressed her or sought to fix her attention. Nor did I take any action toward making her acquaintance, perhaps my forbearance, requiring so supreme an effort of self-denial, will not be entirely clear to you. That I was heels over head in love.
Heels over head?
True, but who can overcome his habit of thought or reconstruct his character? Heels over head at least makes sense as an exclamation of how in love you are.
As opposed to head over heels.
Is just how you walk down the street.
Yep. I've never heard it said in the way that it probably should be if you're actually describing it knocked me off my feet.
Yeah, I felt all topsy-turvy.
Yep. I've just never heard that actually described. That's
heels
funny.
overhead.
Heels overhead.
I was what some foolish persons are pleased to call, and others more foolish are pleased to be called, an aristocrat. And despite her beauty, her charms and graces, the girl was not of my class. I had learned her name, which it is needless to speak, and something of her family. She was an orphan, a dependent niece of the impossible elderly fat woman in whose lodging house she lived.
Is this a Jane Austen story?
Somewhere between Jane Austen and Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
Yep.
She was below me and an orphan.
My income was small, and I lacked the talent for marrying. It is perhaps a gift. An alliance with that family would condemn me to its manner of life, part me from my books and studies, and in a social sense reduce me to the ranks. It is easy to deprecate such considerations as these, and I have not retained myself for the defense. Let judgment be entered against me, but in strict justice all my ancestors for generations should be made co-defendants, and I be permitted to plead in mitigation of punishment the imperious mandate of heredity. To a misalliance of that kind, every globule of my ancestral blood spoke in opposition. In brief, my tastes habits, instinct with whatever of reason my love had left me, all fought against it. Moreover, I was an irreclaimable sentimentalist and found a subtle charm in an impersonal and spiritual relation which acquaintance might vulgarize and marriage would certainly dispel. No woman, I argue, is what this lovely creature seems. Love is a delicious dream. Why should I bring about my own awakening?
Wow, this guy needs a hug.
He put her up on a pedestal. And,
yeah. He put the pussy on the pedestal.
Yeah.
It's like 40-year-old virgin. I just rewatched that recently, and they keep saying, "You're putting the pussy on the pedestal." He's like, "What does that mean?" It's real though. When you have a crush on someone, it's like, and all of a sudden you are like, I don't know how to talk to that person.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had not even realized you had a crush, or no one had pointed out you had a crush on them, or yada yada yada, you would have probably been just fine. But the second you're like, putting the pussy on or the penis on the pedestal, I guess.
And that is like that. Inevitably is where the worst of heartbreak comes from too.
Oh yeah.
Is when you do the thing where you fall in love with someone so hard and so fast that you turn them into something more than human.
A goddess. You turn them into a god or a goddess. Yeah.
Because once you've done that, you're screwed. Because what is either going to happen is they're going to say, like, if you ever get around to talking to them, either they're going to say no, and then you'll be devastated by the fact that your pinnacle of perfection has said no.
Yeah.
Or they'll say yes, and then that first time they fart in bed with you, the universe is over.
It's like, oh no. There's a Sex and the City episode about that.
But what is much more likely is that you'll just never get around to talking to them and telling them. And so then the heartache that you feel is the one from like, I never even had a chance.
Yeah.
So take your pick. They all suck.
Don't put the pussy on the pedestal.
Besides, you can never compare to a pedestal. I'm sorry, that might have been a little too subtle. That was another penis joke. No man's penis is the size of a pedestal.
It depends on the size of the pedestal. It depends on what kind of art it's holding up.
I assume if it's a pussy going on the pedestal, that it is at least...
Mom, Dad, Jamie, all my relatives, I love you. But you agree, right?
Oh, fuck. Love is a delicious dream. Why should I bring about my own awakening? The course dictated by all this sense and sentiment was obvious. Honor, pride, prudence, preservation of my ideals all commanded me to go away, but for that I was too weak. The utmost that I could do by a mighty effort of will was to cease meeting the girl, and that I did. I even avoided the chance encounters of the garden, leaving my lodging only when I knew that she had gone to her music lessons, and returning after nightfall. Yet all the while I was as one in a trance, indulging the most fascinating fancies and ordering my entire intellectual life in accordance with my dream. Ah, my friend, as one whose actions have a traceable relation to reason, you cannot know the fool's paradise in which I lived. One evening, the devil put it into my head to be an unspeakable idiot.
Was that the devil? Or was that your penis?
Or are you just an idiot?
Are you you just attracted to this woman. Like, come on.
By apparently careless and purposeless questioning, I learned from my gossipy landlady that the young woman's bedroom adjoined my own.
Oh, no.
Party wall between.
Party wall?
A party wall, yes.
Oh, yeah, they're going to make it a party wall. Have you ever heard of the glory hole?
Yielding to a sudden and coarse impulse, I gently rapped on the wall. There was no response, naturally, but I was in no mood to accept a rebuke. A madness was upon me, and I repeated the folly, the offense, but again ineffectually, and I had the decency to desist. An hour later, while absorbed in some of my infernal studies, I heard, or thought I heard, my signal answered. Flinging down my books, I sprang to the wall, and as steadily as my beating heart would permit, gave 3 slow taps upon it. This time the response was distinct, unmistakable. 1, 2, 3. An exact repetition of my signal. That was all I could elicit, but it was enough. Too much. The next evening, and for many evenings afterward, that folly went on, I always having the last word. During the whole period, I was deliriously happy, but with the perversity of my nature, I persevered in my resolution not to see her. Then, as I should have expected, I got no further answers. She's disgusted, I said to myself, with what she thinks my timidity in making no more definite advances, and I resolved to seek her and make her acquaintance, and what? I did not know, nor do I now know what might have come of it. I know only that I passed days and days trying to meet her, and all in vain. She was invisible as well as inaudible. I haunted the streets where we had met, but she did not come. From my window I watched the garden in front of her house, but she passed neither in nor out. I fell into the deepest dejection, believing that she had gone away, yet took no steps to resolve my doubt by inquiry of my landlady, to whom, indeed, I had taken an unconquerable aversion from her having once spoken to the girl with less of reverence than I thought befitting. There came a fateful night.
Stalker.
Worn out with emotion, irresolution, and despondency, I had retired early and fallen into such sleep as was still possible to me. In the middle of the night, some malign power bent upon the wrecking of my peace forever caused me to open my eyes and sit up, wide awake, and listening intently for I knew not what. Then I thought I heard a faint tapping on the wall, the mere ghost of the familiar signal. In a few moments it was repeated, 1, 2, 3. No louder than before, but addressing a sense alert and strained to receive it. I was about to reply when the adversary of peace again intervened in my affairs with a rascally suggestion of retaliation. She had long and cruelly ignored me. Now I would ignore her. Incredible.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No, sweetie. No.
Incredible fatuity. May God forgive it. All the rest of the night I lay awake, fortifying my obstinacy with shameless justifications and listening.
You just fucked up, dude.
Late the next morning, as I was leaving the house, I met my landlady entering. "Good morning, Mr. Dampier," she said. "Have you heard the news?" I replied in words that I had heard no news.
Oh, God.
In a manner that I did not care to hear any.
Oh, God.
The manner escaped her observation. About the sick lady next door,
No.
she babbled on. What, you did not know? Why, she's been ill for weeks, and now... I almost sprang upon her. And now, I cried, now what?
Oh, God.
Well, she is dead.
She was trying to say goodbye. Oh, my God. Oh, no.
That is not the whole story. In the middle of the night, as I learned later, the patient, awakening from a long stupor after a week of delirium, had asked, it was her last utterance, that her bed be moved to the opposite side of the room. Those in attendance had thought the request a vagary of her delirium, but had complied. And there the poor passing soul had exerted its failing will to restore a broken connection, a golden thrill of sentiment between its innocence and a monstrous baseness owing a blind, brutal allegiance to the law of self.
Oh.
What reparation could I make? Are there masses that can be said for the repose of souls that are abroad such nights as this? Spirits blown about by the viewless winds, coming in the storm and darkness with signs and portents, hints of memory and presages of doom? This is the third visitation. On the first occasion, I was too skeptical to do more than verify by natural methods the character of the incident. On the second, I responded to the signal after it had been several times repeated, but without result. Tonight's recurrence completes the fatal triad expounded by Parapelius Necromantius. There is no more to tell. When Dampier had finished his story, I could think of nothing relevant that I cared to say, and to question him would have been a hideous impertinence. I rose and bade him good night in a way to convey to him a sense of my sympathy, which he silently acknowledged by a pressure of the hand. That night, alone with his sorrow and remorse, he passed into the unknown. The end.
Oh my God. Holy shit, that took a turn.
So
was she knocking for the third time knowing he was gonna die? Like, now we can like be together?
I think the three,
like,
what he said was that those three visitations were sort of her letting him know your time is coming.
Yeah, like
you get three of these, and the third time will be the night that you pass. Sort of sidebar.
Yeah.
But I think it lines up with the at least one of the morals that I'm taking from this story. As we are recording this, today was my dad's birthday.
Yeah.
He died a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted a thing on a couple of the social medias that was me playing and singing a song that I very much associate with him. And just sharing a little bit about that. And I added to the end of the post something to the effect of, tell your friends and family what you feel about them. Tell them you love them because they want to hear it.
Yeah.
That feels like this.
Yeah.
Just say the thing you're thinking.
Say what you're feeling. Yeah.
Tell people what you're feeling. Tell them what you're thinking.
Especially if you love them.
Because putting it off doesn't do anyone any good. Yeah. Because you might think that you're keeping them from like feeling awkward if you get too forward and emotional. And you might think that like in this case, you're protecting yourself from embarrassment or from negative social repercussions. But the truth is you get over awkwardness. You don't get over missed chances.
Yeah, you don't get over regret. Yeah. I think this story and the pandemic and like in general life has been teaching us recently is tell people you love them. Like, it's very important. It's very important.
Yeah.
Like, don't just knock on the wall. Like, don't just knock on the wall. Tell them you love them, because who knows what that will do to their day, you know? What a beautiful, what a twist. I didn't know where that was going. Now I'm definitely not going to attend my reunion, because someone sits me down and tells me a story like that and be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And now we're just in a cornfield. What am I going to do? Yeah, that was beautiful. I had no idea that's where it was going. And I like how it lines up with your day. And
dear listener, and if you're a new listener, you don't know that this is our routine, but at the end of every episode, we like to give a little secret password. And what this password does is it's a fun way for you to say hi to us. It'll let us know that you listened this far. So you can email us at 5050artsproduction@gmail.com. 5050artsproduction is our sort of parent production company. Or you can message us at Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or any of those social media things.
If you just Google Campfire Classics, we have a website as well.
Yeah. And you send us this little password, and it lets us know that you listened to the end and that you heard us talking about the moral and how we felt about the story. And it's a nice way for us to feel like this is more of a conversation and less of us just screaming into the void.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice way for you to say hi if you're like, I don't know how to say hi.
Yeah.
We want you to say hi.
And really thank you to all of you amazing people who do that, because it really truly does make this
so much to us. Yeah.
feel so much more like a conversation. And to those of you who have been responding to last week's episode with a thank you, Emily, just know that those have been getting passed on, and she very much appreciates them.
Yes.
So that's awesome. All of that is a lead up to this. This week's secret passcode is, of course, Dick in Hand. But what I would also love is, while you are writing us a message
that says Dick in Hand,
also send a message to someone in your life who you just feel like you should say something to. Whether it's, a friend you haven't talked to in a long time, or a parent or an uncle or an aunt or a child or whatever who maybe just needs to hear that you're thinking about them, or fuck it, even if it's just that, cute guy who works at the coffee shop that
thank you for making my coffee so good,
that you've been too nervous to talk to or whatever. Tell someone what you're thinking and what you're feeling, and do that while you're sending us your message, so that it forces you to actually do the thing. And if you're really feeling bold about it, let us know who you talk to. But that's all. That would just be my request, is in addition to our secret code, that you reach out and touch someone.
With their consent. I think
after your dick is no longer in your hand.
In your hand, yes. Yeah. I do kind of love that this all lined up with the whole fun facts of disappearance, and tell people what you feel when you can, because you never know what's gonna happen to in the world. Where we are in the world. I know we don't usually go to the serious place, but we've both been dealing with a lot of stress. I think the world's been dealing with a lot of stress lately, and that story lined up so beautifully with your father's birthday. And and you know what? Sometimes we guess what? Ken and Heather have feelings too. Sometimes we have many feelings. I try to bury them very deep under dick jokes. Dick jokes and mountains of protein powder. But they're still there. So yeah, I mean, what a beautiful sentiment that story was. I had no idea that's where it was going.
And hey, in case no one has told you today, I love you.
Now tell 5 friends about Campfire. But seriously, You're amazing. You're getting through this fucking time that's just nuts. And the fact that you're here listening or you're just getting through your day. Fuck yeah. That's you're kicking ass. So I think with that, I think we're
that's
done.
Enough of this mushy shit.
So remember to send us an email with dick in hand. Yeah. Not a picture of your dick in your hand, but just the phrase dick in hand.
Yeah. For the record.
I don't want any dick pics.
Yes. So if you send us dick pics, we're going to use them for blackmail.
Yep.
Because this podcast doesn't make us nearly enough money. So we're just going to extort you.
Yep. You're welcome.
That's what you get for
sending...
unsolicited porn.
Consent is important.
And on that note, this has been Campfire Classics, where we try to read those books that look really good on your shelf.
Knock, knock, knock. My secret message for you to come on over.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Come on over, baby.
It was a Darth Vader vibrator with some tap, tap, tapping.
Full circle.